So we're gonna get started. When you listen back to your own work like this, what moment will you stand out?
I mean, when I think about the score to Shelby Oaks, I'm just happy that it's out there because it took almost 3 years to get that movie made. So, yeah, super stoked.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
I think I'm the least serious musician of this crowd. That's what I realized. No, I mean, it's fun to hear, the different iterations that pop songs can ultimately take, like from actual pop songs through cartoon avatars of doing pop music. It's fun.
We love it.
Yeah, so that was incredibly fun for me to listen to. I hope it was evocative for you guys. I know it made me feel something. That for me, so that was the main titles of Arnold, which is a Netflix docuseries about Arnold Schwarzenegger. And for me, what we were going for is we wanted the main titles to feel like this kind of mystery and keep you engaged and tell you like, hey, there's more to this story than you might expect. There's more to the character of Arnold. And so I think on that, the main titles in that show, we really brought a depth and emotion that the music really added to the film. So yeah, I'm just very proud of the work I did on that, and that was my first time co-scoring a project that was, a very worldwide known project. I think it was number 3 on Netflix when it came out. So yeah, I just learned a lot on that film, working with the director, Leslie Chilcott. She was fantastic. I learned a lot from my co-composer, Christoph Beck, who's been a great mentor for me over the years. That was just really a great opportunity for me to hone my craft and cut my teeth. So I'm very grateful for that experience.
Actually, when I was working with Noam Khalil on Power Rangers, the sound was very rich and energetic. And they asked me and they gave me some directives to score some additional music. The idea just to keep the main powerful and heroic tone of Power Rangers, but in the meantime I was giving my own energy on it. And I used a lot of heavy brass and drums and electric guitars, by the way, and to give that tone that defined Power Rangers. So it was a really great experience, and I was happy to give my touch on that project.
I love it. Congratulations, guys. That's so awesome. Wow. I mean, the fact that it takes like 2 to 3 years for you guys to like get it, and then we get to hear it and we get to enjoy it. It's absolutely incredible. So we're gonna start with you, George. Your album, Music for Halloween Night, takes listeners on a journey through an entire Halloween evening. What inspired you to tell that story musically, and how did you decide on what moments to include?
Yeah, so it's sort of a soft sequel to an album I did a few years before called Music of the Macabre. And when I did the second one, I really wanted to write something that was more cohesive and kind of a long play listening experience, sort of like those old Halloween cassettes and CDs I grew up listening to that you can listen to from beginning to end. Obviously, an elevated version of that. It's not just shrieks and screams and distant howling, although there is a little bit of that. But yeah, and then in terms of deciding what moments to include, I had all the options available to me of what you could do on Halloween night. What are people up to on Halloween night? It's trick-or-treating. There's a track called Trick or Treat. You watch a Halloween or horror movie marathon. There's a track called Flick or Treat, which is basically the musical equivalent of channel surfing on Halloween night, of all the different eras of horror film music, using one melody and developing that. There's the Halloween shop, going to a Halloween shop. There's, What Lurks in the Woods. There's, kind of a werewolf track on there.
I love werewolves.
It's a fun, kind of aggressive piece for sure. But yeah, that was, and having it bookended by narration, voiceover that kind of ties it all together in sort of a storybook quality, and sort of writing the soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist.
It could be anything, right?
Could be.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. James, Shelby Oaks builds so much of its tension and emotion through sound. How did you approach creating a score that supports both the mystery and the psychological intensity in that story? 'Cause that's spooky.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it comes down to Chris, our director, was able to film in some really incredible locations. There's a whole scene at the same prison that they shot Shawshank Redemption at, and a couple of other really cool locations. But I think that really inspired us to kind of let the visuals do what the visuals are doing, and have the music kind of take a back seat for a lot of it until you really, really need the music. So it's really important to, especially in a horror movie, to have silence and not lead the witness too much with the music, but once it's there, building that bed of tension was really, really fun.
Oh man, you did it.
Thank you.
And Michelle, the title Kindergarten the Musical instantly feels joyful and full of heart. How did you approach writing the music that captures the wonder and emotions of early childhood while still connecting the families and parents who are watching too?
So one of the things I say, like I write a lot for children's animation and for kids and family television, but I don't think of myself as writing kids music ever. Like I think I try to keep that bar kind of. I think of the Beatles, right? I think like so much of their music was, fine for kids, but it wasn't written for kids, and so that's like kind of the way we approach it. We kind of write love letters to our favorite music as part of this show, but make it contextual to what the kids are dealing with. So I love the band Radiohead. So we did like a Radiohead version of a song around a kid having a meltdown about, his apple juice spilling. So it weirdly works. I don't know really how to explain it. It's just we write the music that we love, and that we think the parents will love, because that's the music that they're going to want to expose their kids to. But we make it contextual in kid language, kid logic, kid references. You don't use a lot of like irony or metaphor with little kids, but you can use aspirational language. You don't have to write down to writing for children.
Amazing. I feel like you really tap into the inner child in all of us. I love that. So. Yeah. Amazing. Matthew, Asteroid explores ambition, risk, human greed against a sci-fi backdrop. How did you and your co-composer use the music to capture both the vastness of space and the personal emotions driving the characters?
Yeah, so Asteroid was a virtual reality film. It actually came out a few weeks ago on Samsung's new VR headset. And so, thank you. And so it is it's a fully, 180 degrees view. So the vastness of space, like you mentioned, is even more pronounced when you're seeing it inches away from your eyes. And so it's just gorgeous visuals, right? So, but we actually focused a little more on the emotions of the characters. These are a ragtag group of strangers taking, a used Soviet rocket into space, so that they can go on this asteroid and mine it for gold and diamonds to become very wealthy. So it's kind of a story about greed. They're not exactly polished, heroic astronauts. So the music had to embody that kind of rebellious, gritty nature. I think at first it was very tempting to try to score it in a more grand vastness of space way. I'm picturing in one of the cues where our characters land on the asteroid, the visuals are incredibly inspiring. It's kind of this lunar, it's very bleak and it's just very beautiful to look at. And so our first attempt was to make this very ominous and grand and play into it like a lot of sci-fi space movies do. But what we found served the film best was when we focused on our characters specifically. The visuals and the dialogue were already doing a great job conveying the awe of space, that the music didn't necessarily need to be redundant in that way. The music was free to convey something else, which in this case was kind of more fun, driving. It was like a rock anthem was played with guitars and bass and drums. And the director, Doug Lyman, was saying he wanted music that makes you smile. So I think that's something that I look for in my projects, is how to, we don't need all mediums like dialogue, sound effects, picture to convey the same thing. I think the music, when they're accurately being conveyed, the music can bring a nuance that creates a more complete whole. And so that's something I look for.
Absolutely. That's awesome. A VR. I gotta go try that. That's too cool. Okay. Youssef, you've mentioned being thoughtful about choosing instruments that bring emotion and story to life. What are some of the key sounds or instruments you used in Power Rangers to reflect its world of adventure and teamwork?
Yeah, actually, as a Power Rangers fan, they know that the sound of Power Rangers is a big mix of orchestral writing and strong rock elements. So I try to keep that tone very close to this idea that to be able to create that exciting team-driven feeling for all the audience. So as a Moroccan background, I'm so grateful to have this kind of diversity of instruments. We have a bunch of instruments, percussion. So sometimes I'm lost. So I have a lot of bunch of instruments at home. So sometimes I don't use them because there are a lot, And so always this kind of cultural richness that I have in my background help me to shape and to give that particular tone to my project, even it's big projects as I'm working as a Power Rangers. So I usually come back to my background to help my inspiration to be able to create something special for the audience,
It's amazing. I mean, we're all hearing it in our head right now. Go Power Rangers!
Yes, exactly.
So
Absolutely.
It is. It's iconic, and we thank you.
Thank you
for continuing on that
You're welcome.
greatness in your projects. Now, for everyone, if you can give me 2 to 3 examples of this, staying on this topic of instruments that we talked about with Youssef, what's the most unexpected sound or instrument you've ever used in a project that made it to the final mix?
Oh, me first?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Yeah, no, I mean, maybe not so unexpected, but on the first album, and it makes an appearance on the second album, was when I first started writing the album, I was digging through a lot of nostalgia for Halloween and things. I'm a kid of the 90s, so I remember Halloween in the 90s. And when I dug up a bunch of old decorations, I found the old Shaking Ghost with those 2, little theremin notes. And I realized that was part of a melody, and it became the main motif of one of the tracks I wrote called Memories of Halloween. So I sampled that ghost and made him, he doesn't play through the whole thing, that would be unbearable. But but I used that and then transitioned to a theremin and the rest of the orchestra building around that. And it really, the whole thing shaped out of that, and it became this kind of melancholic, wistful, nostalgic sort of piece. So
This feels like clickety clacks and
yeah, or like I'll try to sing it, the thing. Everybody in here knows that immediately. It's made a reappearance in Targets all over the world. So.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's the sound.
Yeah. All right, James.
There's a instrument that I used on Shelby Oaks that kind of became the heart of the film. It's called a guitar viol, and it's like halfway between a guitar and a cello. So it's a fretted instrument that you bow. But I don't want to give too much away about the movie for people who haven't seen it. But there's a demon in the movie, and his theme is played on that instrument. And then it ended. I kind of bought it for that reason and brought it in for that reason. And then it ended up kind of, finding its way all over the score and adding this kind of grittiness to the score that I think comes across. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm learning so much. New instrument.
Yeah, it's a cool one. Check it out.
Yeah. All right. Michelle?
My dog is on everything in the background. You'll hear, if you hear, barking in the background of a Doc McStuffins song, that's probably Rosie. And then just Nothing. I mean, with us, it's because we're writing the songs which have lyrics. So the bed of the tracks and the beds are more backgroundy. We're not using sound as much as we're driving story with lyrics. But one time, because we get notes from standards and practices, we were getting annoyed by the Disney standards and practices person. So, because she was like noting all of our lyrics as being like, that's too dangerous. So I think we put in like exploding glass at the end of one of our demos just to be obnoxious, and it didn't stay in, but it was that's how we use sound. We use it to mess with S&P.
Why not? It's a fun time. It's a good time.
So yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the process, is exploring and finding unique instruments, and for me the best way to the direct line into telling this unique story. So for me, I worked on a film a few years ago about mental health among students at USC, and I used a combination of two instruments. The first was a bass recorder, which is like a larger version of what we all play in third grade, right? And the second was acoustic guitar harmonics, where I recorded these harmonics and like chopped off the first part of the note where you hear the strumming, so you just get this resonant end of the note. And it really worked for the film because the bass recorder, especially in the low register, has this very breathy quality that made it very haunting, especially how it was used and the scenes that I was working with. And the acoustic guitar harmonics just had this ethereal quality. So together it was very haunting and rich. And I'll give one more example, which was a video game I scored where I used an Aztec death whistle, which is, so it's like, it's shaped like a skull, and you blow into the top of it, and it's this very eerie and vacant and otherworldly sound. So I used it in this video game that I was trying to portray the underworld in a Mesoamerican project. And so it really fit that context and put you in that world.
I mean, it's like a shriek. It's crazy. I've heard it.
Yeah.
It's very, very chilling. Amazing. That's so cool.
It's funny because I used a bunch of bass recorder on Shelby Oaks too, but in a very different, very scary way. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. To give us a heart attack. That's what it's
exactly.
for.
Yeah.
All right, Youssef?
You mean which instrument I can use sometimes? Not particularly sometimes. We have an instrument called gimbri in Morocco. You can find it anywhere just in Morocco. And usually it's kind of, when I use it sometimes, I use it for give that old school instrument. And recently I use it for like drums, because when you play, it's kind of, the sound comes like drums. And so I use it in the chord, which is, when the judge knocked in on the table. So I use this sound. It makes a beautiful sound in my soundtrack. When I talk with the director, I told him, this is the instrument that I use. He said, no, unbelievable. It sounds like drums. No, this is the gimbri. It's called gimbri. It was funny. And in the meantime, it was like surprise for my production. So, I like it, It's kind of inspiration.
That's so cool. I love that. That's so cool across the board. All right. Now, particularly going into the spooky guys around here, George and James, music can make scary moments absolutely chilling, or even lull the audience into a false sense of security and safety. Can you share a moment in your respective projects where the music completely changed the way the fear and tension was felt?
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, there's a track on the album called The Seance, which is also another thing I guess a lot of people do on Halloween night, where it sort of lulls you into sort of it's structured in the way that you would have a seance, where you're like cleansing the space, everyone joins hands, and then you sit down and you start trying to contact the spirit, and then you do contact the spirit, and it's signified by a soprano vocalist on the track, and it gets at a lot of like aleatoric, weird, spooky stuff. But then by the end of the track, when the apparition appears, it turns into this very lush, sort of chromatic planing string thing, very Williams Goldsmith, unabashedly. And then it sort of builds and builds and builds, and then it shrieks and goes away, like you close the board and you're too scared to keep talking to the ghost anymore. So that's kind of it sort of lulls you into that, of this very sort of more, again, aleatoric kind of strange sounds, and then becomes more harmonic and more tonal at the end, which kind of twists it. It's usually a part people point out they like most.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we didn't really use music to lull anybody into a false sense of security in this film, but we did very purposefully have a lot of silence in the film, and rather than using music, cutting music in a place and then having it come back right when like there's a big jump scare or something like that. So in that silent moment, you feel in the theater totally alone, which, you know, and there's stuff with this sound design as well that we did where we would like pull like all the crickets out of something, so it's just like totally silent. So yeah, and then what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Like, how do you change the way fear and tension is felt?
Gotcha. Yeah, so there's a particular scene towards the end of Shelby Oaks where the protagonist is kind of figuring out this grand conspiracy, and we used a lot of like chanting and kind of acoustic like hand drums and tambourines that gave it this kind of, you know, really old world feel, because that's what's going on in the film. And I think it brings a much scarier sound than you know, and a much different sound than the rest of the film as well.
Yeah, it's because you guys, I can't do scary movies. It's so scary. It's so literally, ugh. Okay, amazing. And the next set of questions for Michelle, Matthew, and Youssef. All three of you have worked across different genres. When you first approach a new project, what is your process in finding the voice, so to speak, or the musical language of the world? And when you find it, how does that guide you for the rest of your project?
I mean, I've worked on so many shows, and a lot of it has to do with like the taste of the showrunner and the creator. So, like for example, with Loud House, the creator was a huge REM fan, so we had that like, you know, almost like End of the World as You Know It kind of inspiration for the theme. You know, like really busy lyrics and that kind of thing, and that ended up kind of being that definitely informed the palette for definitely for the theme, and then the theme definitely informed the music for the rest of the show. But it also gets very diverse, like depending on, you know, we'll do a Halloween episode or a Christmas episode. But the theme, I think, kind of is where we establish it, and that comes from the conversations with the creators. With Kindergarten, I was the creator of the show, so that came from like my taste in music, you know, and we were able to really go kind of across the board with styles and genres, because I love a lot of different kinds of music, and so does my music team. And so I think, you know, it had to do with, for that show, you don't want to ever be too on the nose, right? Like tell people what to feel. So you really kind of, it comes down to like your own taste and what you kind of want to see that's missing, you know, want to feel that's missing. So sometimes it could be something completely unexpected that will make you feel something that doesn't, it's like, I'm sure you know this from doing more, you know, like horror movies or scary movies, is like to create fear. There's some of the woo stuff that you can do that's typically scary on the nose, but then there's also stuff that's I think surprising is also really effective. So we use that in children and family music as well. Like, amazing. It's kind of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, my process is kind of a two-part process, and starts first with kind of analyzing the film on a conceptual level. I like to think, what are the central themes of the movie? What are the ideas? And then what instruments convey these, or sounds, what can evoke these meanings, and also how can these instruments be played in different ways? So that's, I like to think of it on a conceptual level first. And then the second part, of course, is testing it out and hearing, is this resonating on an emotional level? Because I think a lot of us can have lofty ideals about how to approach things, and you really have to test it out and see if it is connecting and making you feel something. So that was the process on Asteroid. On a conceptual level, these characters were very rebellious, kind of, and so we ended up using the electric guitar, which I think in modern day society has this connotation of edginess and grit, and so it worked on that conceptual level, and then it really felt, we really felt that as well. And it added an extra element to the movie and made it fun. And so then once we established that the electric guitar was the sound we wanted to work with, the challenge and the fun part, honestly, is using the electric guitar throughout the film. So like I mentioned, when we land on the asteroid, we're using the electric guitar in a pretty straight up context, so you recognize it as such. But in more moments, earlier on, where let's say there's more majesty of space that we're playing into, or cerebral, intimate horror, terror moments, we're warping the guitar, we're manipulating it, and we're playing it a different way. I played it with a ebow, which is, you play a violin, and this is an ebow, so you hold it over the electric guitar, over the pickups, and it makes the string resonate indefinitely. So you don't consciously recognize it as a guitar per se, but you still feel that gritty undertones that the instrument has, and it's a really great way to make an entire score feel very cohesive. So making the score cohesive is definitely a big goal of mine.
Amazing. That's so cool.
For me, the process how I score the project is always I start by listening, just listening, not the music, but listening to the whole world of the project itself, and then if something like I have the colors, or I was listening to the rhythm of the people, or how they talk, so and listening to the emotion is underneath of the story too, so I always try to find that tone, we can kind of sketching of the project. So it's kind of intuition and experimentation together, and if I see that some chord or some tone feels really right, so I came up after to finish the score by itself, and then it's good sign for me that I'm in the right place. This is very simple.
Doesn't sound simple to me, but that's awesome. that is so. These group of people are so cool and iconic, and have worked on such impactful projects. I'm sure all of us would love to know from them some advice, especially for people who want to break through to the industry and want to tell stories through music. What's one piece of advice you guys can give us?
The first one, listen to music, a lot of music, and to have more background. Just like someone who reads a lot of books, so you have more ideas.
Amazing.
So simple.
Love that.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo what Youssef said. Listen to as much music as you can, and try to connect what you're hearing to what you're feeling. I think everyone, all of us and everyone in the audience, we feel slightly different, when different music is being played, and we have different associations and different imaginations. So learning to connect those, the music you're hearing and how you're feeling is very important, and that's your reference point for when you're asked to storytell in the future. And I would also say, try to, have a mentor that you look up to and that you appreciate their music. For me, I've been fortunate that I've had Christoph Beck as a mentor, and I've learned a lot from him musically, creatively, professionally, the way he interacts with directors and producers, and that all informs how I go about my own career. And it's opened a lot of doors for me to get to, contribute music to these, really big blockbuster projects, movies and TV shows that ordinarily would have been a little harder to get. So I think finding a mentor is a very valuable thing that you can have.
I totally agree with that. I worked for the Newton Brothers for a really long time, and they're the co-composers on my film, actually.
Cool.
And it's such a great way to learn the craft, to learn the business, and to you get to make a lot of mistakes, and nobody sees the mistakes because it's kind of behind closed doors. I would also say that if you're interested in scoring films, like, just start scoring films. Don't wait. Like, if it's something you're interested in, pull clips off of YouTube and rescore stuff. It's a great way to kind of get your hands on what that craft is like.
Yeah, there's like there's a skill, right, to writing for AV. There's stuff that you learn, you have to sort of learn how to do. But I was at SCAD, in the Atlanta campus, and I was talking to a student there. SCAD doesn't have a music department, but he's a composer. He is the smartest kid I've ever met, because he's befriending all of the editors and the actors and the writers and the designers at SCAD and the, people. Like, it's great to know other musicians and learn from other musicians, but if you want to go into film and television, meet the directors and the editors and the people who are doing the things that will ultimately hire you and work with you and be collaborative with you, that are in your peer group. I was like, oh, this is, I'm going to tell anyone who asks me how to do this, I'm going to tell them this, because that is the smartest, because he's already working.
That's great advice.
That's really
All right, George.
What they said. No, I think just tacking on to everything that has already been said, I think also just create all the time, and I think put yourself out there in whether or not it feels like it's just into the void. Create music, put it out there, try to connect with people, try to connect emotionally with an audience, try to elicit a response with your music, practice your craft. Technology has afforded us so many opportunities to meet people, to practice what we do, to learn. I mean, my God, you could learn everything you need to know about music on YouTube, probably, and then just sit down at a keyboard and buy books, study scores, practice mock-ups. That's a huge skill that's very necessary. Just create all the time. There's no excuse not to.
All right, so recap. Listen to music. All right, guys. Get a mentor. Know people. Networking. Just start making it and keep creating. Right?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Love it. Absolutely incredible. You guys make me want to be a musician, but I have no talent. So I'll stick to my lane. I think we have a few minutes for some questions from the audience, if anyone has any for anyone.
Hi. The question for everybody. I just wanted to know what score or what piece of music inspired you or gave you that aha moment to say, this is what I want to do. I want to be a composer.
Oh, I love that.
Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh, that's great.
All good.
For me, Arrival by Johan Johansson.
Oh, great call.
For me, John Williams, A.T.
Yes.
when I was young.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
I had a feeling we were going to get a lot of John Williams.
They're all great. All fantastic.
Master. This question is for Matthew. I see there's a lot of inspiration with the guitar in your film.
Yeah.
I was wondering, did you explore other sounds with the guitar as far as effects? Did you go analog? Do you use plugins?
Yeah, that's a great question. I went analog for a lot of situations. I have some pedals like, a reverb pedal, a delay pedal, and kind of feeding them into each other, creating some definitely kind of wacky sounds that way. And yeah, a lot of it also goes into the box just because editing the guitar later, it does become a lot easier when you have it dry. But when you love a sound so much and, you know, you're working with pedals, you might as well just kind of bake that into the recording. So, because there's so much decision making you have to do with like, let me keep this, you know, unprocessed so I can mess with it later, and you can do that forever. So when you do find a sound you like, just kind of sticking with it, and then you can craft everything else around it. Like helps you, check the boxes. So that kind of like helps you move forward. Yeah.
I think we had one more.
She actually asked one of my questions. I have another question was, are there any opinions that you have that are like polarizing within your industry, or just like strong opinions that other composers would disagree with you on? I'm curious to just get a handle of this.
Spicy.
I like it.
The price of plugins is too damn high.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I think maybe just you kind of see it coming back, just the absence of themes and development and using that as a way to tell a story. But I kind of see it coming back. For a while there, it was very absent. It was way more soundscape-driven scores, which are fantastic, but I miss and love symphonic development and developing ideas musically throughout a story harmonically and whatnot. I think that really adds another level to cinema.
I don't think this is controversial. I think everyone will agree, but I mean, it's kind of harsh, which is that streaming killed the industry. Maybe. Did it? I don't, you know, we're trying to survive, but it changed the consumption model of streaming and how it pays out killed the middle class, or is killing the middle class of creators. And so how we come back from that and build is tricky, and I think worth thinking and spending time on.
All right.
Go for it.
I feel like someone should say something positive though.
There's one right here.
Hello. I always loved the scores of Ennio Morricone for the many movies he did, and I remember reading that he would compose music before the scenes were filmed so that the score would be played while the actors were acting out the scene and they could hear the music. And there were sometimes many scenes that had no dialogue at all, just people moving while the score by Morricone told the story. Do you believe storytelling through scores that just move the story can still be done today, or even productions where the score can be composed first prior to the shooting?
Yeah, I wrote a bunch of music before I got the first cut of Shelby Oaks, and that was actually really helpful and kind of greased the wheels for us. It was already shot, but they weren't like playing the music on set or anything. But it made it really easy when I was sending stuff to the director, and he, you know, I would be like, hey, I'm writing this, like plug it in where you think it works and that kind of thing, and that kind of helped get the conversations off the ground of like where we wanted music, where we didn't want music, what the sound palette should be like. And I think it's really, you don't always get that chance, because as I think everyone here will tell you, we're usually the last people to get hired. So you don't often have the chance to make a bunch of music before you get into the actual nitty gritty of scoring a film. But I did on Shelby Oaks, and it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, I also, similar to James, I also wrote a lot of the music for Arnold while they were still cutting it, because I think that's more common in a documentary. But yeah, we would write, you know, long thematic suites, you know, maybe 10 minutes, and, you know, send a bunch of cues, and we would, you know, come into the playback and the music would be in totally different spots. And it's a very collaborative way of working. And, you know, I was thinking like, oh, I really like how they use this, and I wouldn't have maybe pictured this, and now let me take this a step further. So I think that's a very exciting way that I do see documentaries, because you can continuously change the story depending on the edit. It doesn't work maybe quite that way with a narrative, but it's definitely a very collaborative way to work.
I can add a short thing that recently I had a really good challenge. I worked with the director who before he do a video, music video. So he create the background of the script, but he works on music. So I did the opposite. So I write score for the image. So we worked together, and it was really a tough moment because his side is creating the script and the video, but my side I create a score for the image. So we started working on a TV show that he created by himself, and it was really a tough moment because we are the same track, but we have a lot of ideas, and sometimes we choose a letter because we can make it together, and it was a really good experience for me. It's like a challenge, so I like that.
All right, this will be a fun one, and it's for any of you guys. If you could have someone score your life, like your life theme, what would it be, or who would score it?
Johnny Greenwood.
Oh, that's such a great call. I wish I would have thought of that. You know what? I'm gonna go with Johan Johansson because I think that he's able to, or was able to create some really intimate, beautiful scores. And my life's not that crazy, so I'm not gonna say John Williams.
Oh, James Horner, maybe.
That's a good one.
R.I.P.
Maybe I think Alexandre Desplat. Yeah.
I would say Johan Johansson as well, just to go off your answer. But the minimal kind of style of writing is something that there's a beauty in kind of having less is more, and so I would just be interested in that.
Well, I would let any of these guys score my life. So cool, especially since I've met them already. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much to our panelists, George, James, and Youssef, for being here with us today to discuss your incredibly talented work. Also, thank you so much to Impact24 PR and the Comic-Con Museum for putting this panel together. And to all of you guys, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us.